The Israeli Air Force and the IDF are shifting into a higher gear in their strikes inside Iran, and the domino effect that could topple the Revolutionary Guards in Iran has already begun. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm your host, Yair Pinto, and on this show, we report about all the truth of what is happening in Israel. This is the fifth day of the direct war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran. The IDF reported that in the overnight strikes in western Iran, launchers and missiles and other silos were targeted, leading to the destruction of additional units following an announcement on Monday that as much as 1/3 of Iran's missile launching capability has already been taken out. This is the result of Israel's policy of actively hunting for these launchers and the missiles that can be loaded onto them, along with the Revolutionary Guards officers who know how to use this equipment. So the Revolutionary Guards headquarters were also hit last night, along with several anti-aircraft launchers and radar systems, as the Israeli IDF and Air Force continues to operate in the heart of Iran and to exact a heavy price from the Ayatollah regime. This has added to the generally chaotic situation in Tehran, which also included the assassination of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps intelligence chief, and his deputy, and the pick-up panic, including the live broadcast attack on a TV studio related to the Ayatollah regime, and the sewage wave, and much more. Amidst all of this, there are reports of attempts to mobilize the Iranian military, but this is being hampered by confusion and broken lines of communication. And meanwhile, Iranian media reported the closure of the Tehran-Qom highway after a missile hit that area, and air defensive systems were activated Wednesday at the Iranian nuclear facility in Natanz. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said at a press conference on Monday evening that Iran is losing, and a small number of missiles fired at Israel overnight were all intercepted. This followed the thundering threat from the Ayatollah regime that they would hit Israel with the largest attack in history, which didn't materialize. But it is possible that they have adopted the tactics of the Houthis, firing many small salvos that send us running to the bomb shelters several times a day instead of one or two large salvos combined. And Monday night's salvo was directed at the base from which the attack on Tehran's main TV broadcaster was launched, followed by a small volley at Tel Aviv, which was not preceded by a warning siren, and then a single shot at the Galilee. This is what we experienced last night here in Israel. So, now we seem to be making a transition to a new form of warfare. Instead of a few large barrages, we're getting smaller barrages more often. But maybe even that won't last for long, as the IDF has smashed Iran's launch capabilities, and more launchers are being destroyed every hour. Intelligence estimates already show that Iranian commanders who want to fire more often and at heavier volumes cannot get the equipment and the ammunition that they need to carry out their plans. On the other hand, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards appear to be trying to salvage some honor from the devastating defeat that they've already suffered, and one of the surviving commanders is even making threats that they will use a new weapon that we haven't seen so far. We will witness the real state of technological progress, especially in the nuclear field. This is according to the Iranians. And this has led to worries that the IRGC might be preparing to deploy a dirty bomb, but Israeli Defense Minister Katz warned against this situation, saying that Israel would exact a heavy price for any such response. And remember that even after Israel's spectacular successes, Iran retains a large arsenal of missiles that it can fire at us if they manage to get the missiles to operational launchers. So I will give you all the details about the arms and the weapons that the Islamic Republic has. However, despite this and despite all the rhetorical threats, behind the scenes, what's left of Iran's leadership is begging for a ceasefire and signaling that it is ready to return to the negotiating table. There are reports that Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is in complete shock at this turn of events, and other members of the regime have defined their main goal at this point being retaining power. This raises the serious possibility that they'll be ready to agree to terminate their uranium enrichment program in exchange for avoiding being overthrown completely. TBN Israel's senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani will give us some insights and try to answer the big question about whether the United States is joining the war against Iran. President Trump left the G7 leaders meeting in Canada early on Tuesday after making a speech in which he urged his fellow heads of states to help de-escalate the situation by seriously confronting Iran, which he called the principal source of instability and terror in the region. President Trump also made a statement that massively increased the sense of panic and chaos in Tehran, declaring everyone should leave Tehran, the capital of Iran, immediately. Trump then made a series of threatening social media posts overnight emphasizing that Iran must not possess nuclear weapons and hinted that America might soon be entering the fight against Iran, but official sources in the White House deny this. This did not prevent millions of residents of Iran's capital from fleeing, leading to massive traffic jams on the highways leading out of the city of Tehran and increasing the sense of chaos in the country. And meanwhile, United States President Secretary Pete Hegseth announced that he had ordered the deployment of additional defensive capabilities in the Middle East against the backdrop of the escalation between Israel and Iran and in fear of the tensions that are spreading in this region. And amidst all of this, the Wall Street Journal reported that Iran conveyed a message to the United States saying that we will return to nuclear talks as long as you don't participate in the Israeli aggression. However, in the newspaper's assessment, the Israeli leadership has no interest in holding its fire because the damage that Israel has suffered so far from the Iranian counterattacks is manageable. And what is happening meanwhile on the Gaza front? This is something very important. The Air Force is crushing what's left of Hamas in Gaza as well. Alongside the military campaign on the Iranian front, the Southern Command is operating 4 regular and reserve divisions working together on other things in the Gaza Strip. And TBN Israel director Samuel Smadja will be with us later in this report with a special interview with Ramin Parsa, an Iranian who fled the Revolutionary Guards and will give us an inside look at what it's like to live under an extreme Islamic regime. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 619 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region who have been operating under the orders of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East, which is currently getting smashed to pieces on the 5th day of Operation Rising Lion. And a moment before we continue, I want to tell you that we at TBN Israel will keep spreading the truth, but we need your help to keep growing and reaching more people around the world. So if you want to be part in sharing the truth and in praying for the peace of Jerusalem, hit the subscribe button on YouTube so you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Let's start with news from the past 24 hours regarding the Israeli Air Force strikes in Iran. According to reports, Israel is bombing sites in eastern and western Tehran, while the Iranian news sites Asriran reports that air defense systems were activated at the Iranian nuclear facility in the city of Natanz. Early morning, the Air Force identified several trucks carrying weaponry on a highway north of Tehran, amongst them trucks hauling surface-to-air missile launchers and moving from western Iran towards Tehran in an attempt to escape the IDF strikes. In a rapid closing of this loop, the Israeli Air Force attacked the trucks and destroyed the weapons and the launchers. Israel also struck a refinery in western Iran, as well as Iranian news agency Fars reported 8 terminated in a missile strike on the city of Khomeini. Amongst the dead, 6 Revolutionary Guards personnel and 2 operatives of the Basij militia, which is an auxiliary arm of the Revolutionary Guards, whose primary function is to brutalize the Iranian population so that they will be afraid of rebelling against the regime. Meanwhile, the IDF spokesperson in Arabic issued an evacuation notice for one of the areas in Tehran saying, "Urgent warning to all people currently in or soon to be in the area marked on the attached map in District 3 of Tehran. Dear citizens, for your safety, we ask you to leave immediately the aforementioned area in District 3 of Tehran. In the coming hours, we will act in this area to strike the military infrastructure of the Iranian regime, just as it has done in recent days around Tehran. Your presence in this area endangers your life." However, it might be difficult for some people to evacuate because, according to sources in Iran, the regime has closed the highway between Tehran and Qom, one of Iran's central cities, apparently for fear of a mass flight of civilization and people from the capital. And another related development, according to the IDF spokesperson's unit, the Air Force completed several strike waves overnight and attacked about 100 military targets in Isfahan in central Iran. Roughly 50 fighter jets and other aircrafts identified and struck missile storage sites, surface-to-surface missile launchers that were ready to be fired at the State of Israel, at us. Staging areas where missile launchers were being prepared for use were also destroyed, and other strategic targets. Other targets struck include the headquarters of the Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guards and the headquarters of the Iranian army in Tehran. The IDF spokesperson's unit added that in these headquarters, the Quds Force operatives were planning terror actions against Israel through the regime's proxies in the Middle East, which include Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the Houthis in Yemen. This follows strikes on Sunday, which targeted the senior leadership of the IRGC intelligence apparatus. Amongst the officials present in the building where the Israeli strike occurred were the head of the Revolutionary Guards intelligence organization and his deputy, as well as the head of the intelligence branch of the Quds Force and his deputy as well. According to security sources, these evil men were engaged in intelligence and operational activity. They took part in forming the situation assessment in Iran and also in planning actions against Israel and additional states in this region, but they won't be doing that any longer. That's because this strike succeeded in eliminating, among others, Muhammad Kazemi, the head of the Revolutionary Guards intelligence organization since 2022, and his deputy, Muhammad Hassan Magaki, and also terminated Muhsin Bagari and Abu El-Fazi Nikoi, senior Quds Force officials who, according to the reports, were involved in inter-aliyah in contacts with Hezbollah, with Hamas, with the Houthis, and with other militias in this region. These events have contributed to a growing sense of panic in the Ayatollah regime as they watch the system that they've been building up for most of the last 50 years, whose main purpose was to terrorize Israel, threaten the West, and brutalize their own people, come crushing down around their face. The regime has responded to events with a predictable crackdown on opposition groups, arresting and executing multiple people that they suspect of being collaborators with Israel or with the United States of America, and bizarrely, even arresting people simply for driving certain kinds of vehicles. This is justified by a widely held belief that Mossad agents use car batteries for terror operations. With this absurd statement ringing in their ears, the IRGC agents have issued an even more absurd demand to the country's residents that if you see a house with several cars or motorcycle batteries or those of any other vehicle, please report to the oversight bodies. And back in Israel, the IDF announced that for the first time, the Barak Magen air defense system and the long-range LRAD interceptor were used operationally. The interceptor, installed on SAR-6 missile boats of the Israeli Navy, has, according to the IDF, the capability to counter a wide array of threats, including unmanned aerial vehicles, cruise missiles, high-trajectory threats, shore-to-sea missiles, and more. And during the night, the missile boat flotilla of the Navy intercepted 8 unmanned aerial vehicles launched from Iran, and since the beginning of the operation, it has intercepted about 25 UAVs that constituted a threat to the citizens of Israel. The missile boat of Flotilla 3, in cooperation with the Air Force, continue to be deployed in all areas and serve as a force multiplier in the mission of defending the country's skies. So, as the Americans like to say, go Navy. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to spread the whole truth, and we invite you to share and follow us. And most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you stay tuned to the truth in real time and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Of course, the main thing we ask you to do is pray for Israel, especially for our IDF reserve soldiers who are once again being mobilized in large numbers as this offensive against Iran ramps up. I know exactly what that feels like because I've been called up more than once. You leave your family, your job, and everything familiar and go straight into an intense, exhausting condition. And through it all, you need to stay strong, focused, and rooted in faith. During my time in reserves, prayer kept me grounded. But physically, I still needed something to help me keep going. That's when I started using Vinya. Vinya is an Israeli-made supplement from red grape cells. It boosts your blood flow to the heart, to the brain and muscles, which means better focus, more clarity, and the kind of steady energy that gets you through an 18-hour workday. I started taking it during my reserve service, and I'm still taking it today. There is also a coffee version in the mornings, and it gives you what you need without the crash. So if you want to try it for yourself, head over to vinya.tbnisrael.com. Again, that's vinya.tbnisrael.com, or call 800-638-1944. Faith gave me peace, and Vinya helped me stay strong when it matters the most in battle. Getting back to the latest news from the Iranian front, unbelievable images arrived on Monday from Tehran, where the Iranian state television network, the mouthpiece of the Ayatollah regime, announced on air that it was under Israeli bombardment. In footage from the live broadcast, the presenter is seen speaking with noticeable excitement when suddenly a loud explosion is heard. Chunks of concrete apparently fall from the ceiling, and the presenter stands up and runs from the spot. In images filmed outside the building, heavy smoke is seen boiling from the inside. The bombing of the Iranian Broadcasting Corporation IRIB studios came shortly after Defense Minister Israel Katz sent a heavy hint to the IDF's intention to strike the state media in Tehran. In a statement, he said, the Iranian propaganda and incitement mouthpiece is on its way to disappear. Evacuation of the surrounding residents is beginning. After the bombing, Katz stated the propaganda and incitement broadcasting authority of the Iranian regime was attacked by the IDF after extensive evacuation of surrounding residents. We will strike the Iranian dictator everywhere. And speaking of disrupting the Ayatollah regime's plans, the IDF has managed to drastically reduce the number of ballistic missiles that Iran fires at Israel in a very short period of time. From the hundreds of missiles every day that the regime threatens against us, we came down to just under 100 missiles fired at us in the first salvo last Friday evening, and that number and the frequency of the attacks has steadily declined every day since. In the last 24 hours, the number of missiles that are fired against Israel dropped to just a handful, with long pauses in between barrages, and the intelligence echelon believes that what's left of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps leadership is growing more frustrated wanting to fire larger barrages and more often, but is unable to. But this might prompt to change in tactics that Israel will have to find a quick solution for. Overnight between Monday and Tuesday, only single missiles were launched in 3 waves during the night, and in all of them, there was almost no early warning. Meanwhile, the Sabrin news agency, which is affiliated with the pro-Iranian militias in Iraq, published a video on Monday of a missile launch with the breathless commentary that Iran is using for the first time missiles that are launched vertically and disappear in the sky. What does that mean? I don't know, but maybe you have an idea, so let me know what you think in the comments of this video. I want to hear that. And in any case, the report continued by saying that the missile in the video is the Qadr ballistic missile, which reaches the range of 2,000 kilometers and has a warhead of between 650 and 1,000 kilograms. Then, at 3:27 a.m., a second barrage was fired, and this time to the center of Israel, and only 3 minutes beforehand was an early alert given by the Home Front Command, and not to some of the areas where the sirens were sounded, such as Tel Aviv, Herzliya, and Givatayim, and many other locations in the Sharon and the Gush Dan. This salvo, too, included only a few ballistic missiles, between 3 and 5 missiles, and all of them were intercepted. The third wave of attacks from Iran was not a salvo, but a single ballistic missile, perhaps trying to imitate the Houthis in Yemen. The Iranian launched only 1 missile, or maybe more missiles were intended to be fired, but the Air Force, which has achieved air superiority in western Iran, prevented it. To give a brief explanation, Israel has built a robust alert system which sends a message to everyone's phone when a launch is detected, giving everyone advance notice that a threat is on its way even before the alarms are sounded. So they have around 90 seconds to get to a protected space after the sirens alarms begin to sound. But apparently, the system doesn't work as well as there are fewer launchers, so it will have to be adjusted for 1 missile or something like that instead of a large salvo of multiple missiles. I'm sure this can be done fairly quickly, and I'm personally not worried about it. To give some review of recent events, since the beginning of the war with Iran last Friday, about 350 missiles have been launched towards Israel and 24 Israeli civilians have been murdered. Another salvo was fired at Israel on Tuesday morning, interfering with the preparations for this report, as a matter of fact, because we had to go to the bomb shelter. There were some impacts reported in Tel Aviv, and some fires were started from these impacts, but according to initial reports by Magen David Adom, there were no casualties. So we are now 5 days into the campaign between Israel and Iran, and Tehran is already approaching a junction of decision regarding the continuation of the fighting against Israel, the exit strategy, and a possible arrangement afterwards. At this stage, Iran remains focused on managing the fighting. But as the campaign continues and its damages continue to accumulate, it will have to decide between continuing the campaign in its current format, ending the fighting with a political arrangement, or escalating steps. This decision will derive from Tehran's assessment to preferred way to preserve the regime's survival, its nuclear program, and its strategic assets. Candidly, if I were advising the Iranian government at this point, I'd tell them that they've already suffered a devastating strategic defeat and they should quit before they are utterly annihilated. As President Trump has been saying in recent days, they can still save something, but they're losing badly, and if they try to keep fighting, they're gonna lose even what little that they still have left. And speaking for myself, although these ballistic missile attacks are painful, I'm sure that Israel can bounce back from all of this, and I'm willing to make more sacrifices to safeguard the long-term strategic advantage that this campaign against the IRGC have gained for Israel. If the regime in Tehran falls, so much the better, but even if it doesn't, they've already been severely weakened, and their ability to hurt me and my family have been greatly degraded, and that's a very, very good thing. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we'll continue to spread the truth, and once again, we invite you to share and follow us. Most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. And a moment ago, I shared with you from my heart about how many Israelis feel 5 days into this campaign against Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. But it's not only Israelis who are interested in what's happening next. The war against Iran's nuclear program also reflected a large shared aspiration, even if no one wanted to talk about it publicly, by our allies from the West and the East to end the regime in Iran. The grim history of attempts at regime change restrains such talk, but Israel's initial successes in this campaign give it new and intriguing life. The question whether the regime could truly collapse is certainly an important factor in the United States' considerations regarding the scope of its involvement. The current stance of non-involvement is of course not realistic. Israel would not act contrary to the will of the United States, since amongst other things, the Israeli Air Force depends on America for the fuel, the weapons, the spare parts that keep the Air Force operational, and more. We also depend on support from Washington for a diplomatic umbrella at the United Nations, legal defense against international courts, and critical support in intercepting Iranian missiles and drones. All of this makes Monday night's multiple truth social media posts by President Donald Trump even more noteworthy. At the start of this war, Donald Trump posted that everyone should evacuate Tehran immediately, and minutes later, Iranian media reported explosions in the skies over Tehran and heavy fire from the air defense systems. All of this came together to create a perfect storm of panic and confusion, resulting in, among other things, tens of thousands of people taking to the road to try and flee the city, resulting in massive traffic jams and major highways. Angry and somewhat violent people were stranded in their cars, and a rising sense of dread and panic all over the city and beyond. The post that prompted all of this followed President Donald Trump's departure from the G7 summit in Alberta, Canada, where he said, amongst other things, that Iran is the main source of instability and terror in the region, and that we have always been clear that Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapon. Now, just to give you some context, Tehran is a huge city with about 10 million residents, and in recent days, amidst the panic in Iran following the war with Israel, many residents were documented fleeing it. Trump's recent statement have risen again the question whether the United States will join the war alongside Israel, with great importance attached to the Fordo nuclear site, an enrichment facility located in the side of a mountain and considered perhaps the heart of Iran's nuclear program. So according to various Israeli officials, the real destruction of the nuclear program requires dealing with all the facilities, including Fordo. This can be done in various ways, foremost through United States assistance and its B-2 and B-52 bombers, and through giant bunker-penetrating bombs, chiefly the Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP, also known as the GBU-57. The United States Air Force is the only Air Force in the world that possesses such weapons, and the B-52 and B-2 bombers are the only platforms that can deliver it to a target. So President Trump has strongly hinted in recent days that he is considering the idea of using this weapon to destroy the Fordo facility, and United States military assets have reportedly been deployed to give him that option if he chooses to take it. On Monday, President Trump declared, while standing next to the United Kingdom Prime Minister at a joint press conference in Alberta, that Iran needs to make a deal, and wants to make a deal. Once we leave this place, we will do something. According to him, I think that a deal will be signed or something will happen. But a deal will be signed, and I think Iran would be foolish not to sign. When asked whether he is interested in toppling the Ayatollah regime, he did not answer directly. Instead, he said, "I want to see Iran without nuclear weapons, and we're on the right path to make sure that doesn't happen." We now turn to TBN Israel's senior Middle East analyst, Mati Shoshani, who will give us some insights into the United States-Iran relations and what the future holds for us. So over to you, Mati Shoshani.
Thank you, Yair. Well, guys, the war between Israel and Iran is moving into the final and hopefully last phase, the diplomatic arena phase. It's been multiple days of Israel attacking the Iranians with a force that the Iranians never saw coming. But more importantly, Iran is now actively asking for a ceasefire agreement, asking for the attacks by Israel to cease completely. The US is about to enter the picture, possibly in a way that the Iranians weren't expecting, and Iran is regretting everything they've done leading to this moment because they never saw the level of this attack coming. I'm Mati Shoshani. Let's break down everything that's been happening in recent days between Israel and Iran as we enter the new phase, which is the diplomatic negotiations. Now, guys, this is something we've been waiting for multiple days. We knew this was coming. We knew the Iranians were going to ask for a ceasefire at one point or another. It's just a question of how do they phrase this discussion. Will they admit to the fact that they've been defeated, or are they going to try to portray a picture of a peace agreement or a ceasefire between equals? Either which way, we're in a unique position where the Iranians are asking actively for this conflict to end. They can't keep fighting in this way. They've suffered greatly at a very, very high cost from what they've experienced from the Israeli Air Force and Israeli intelligence, and they'd like to move on to the next phase, which is the attacks on them stopping completely. The big player entering the picture right now is the Americans, and they're really going to shape the way this conversation continues in the future. But first, let's talk about the Iranians. The supreme leader of Iran, Khamenei, well, he's made some really big mistakes up till now. Their government completely miscalculated what Israel is willing and able to do to them and to the leaders of their government. They never saw the fact that we were able to eliminate more than 20 of the highest level officers, servants in the public service, and scientists in the nuclear program in the way that we did. They really never saw this coming. They didn't know we had penetrated their intelligence organizations to such an effective degree, and they had no idea that we'd be able to strike so fast, so accurately, and have so much intel and assets on the ground as we did on that early morning of June 13th. And now that we're multiple days into this attack, Israel and Iran have gone back and forth multiple times, with the Iranian launching hundreds of ballistic missiles against Israel, but only a small percentage of them able to cause any substantial damage to this country, and at the same time, Israel with non-stop attacks over Iran. But the important part of those attacks isn't just the fact that they were able to launch missiles and hit targets within Iran. That wasn't the challenge. The challenge was that Israel is able to launch precision strikes on Iranian targets, time and time again, undeterred, unchallenged, uncontested by Iranian air defenses or Iranian forces. The images we've seen of Israeli jet fighters flying for hours over the skies of Tehran, the capital of Iran, a nation 10 times our size, is testament to the force of the Israeli Air Force, its ability to completely dominate the skies of a country so vast and so far away is a logistical, a training, a hardware, and importantly, a manpower amazing miracle that Israel has created over Iran, manifest by the fact that they've been unable to touch even a single aircraft flying through their skies. But things get even more interesting. The Iranians are now asking for a possible ceasefire, but they're asking for that ceasefire not to happen under fire. And Israel's response to that is, nice try, guys. Any negotiation that is going to happen under extreme fire. We're not slowing down, we're not stopping until we've reached our objectives. Well, to quantify that challenge, the Israeli Air Force is about halfway done with the targets it wants to hit within Iran. Many of these targets are targets that require repeated intelligence feeds and require repeated attacks on them to make sure we fully destroyed the attacks. The numbers we heard yesterday are dumbfounding. About 15,000 of an approximate 20,000 centrifuges are no longer operational. They've been or struck by the Israeli Air Force or possibly just taken out of service because the facility they're in is offline, it's broken, whatever the story is. So Israel is saying to the Iranian request, great try, we're negotiating under fire, and this negotiation ends only one possible way, which has been the messaging coming out of Israel from day one, and it ends this way. You have no more ability to enrich uranium, and you have no more enriched uranium, and the number that you're going to get is zero. Zero enriched uranium, zero ability to enrich uranium for now and all the way into the future. Now, the big unknown in this entire equation is the US. The US government, which has been a trend recently, has been communicating from different voices, and it's unclear where they're actually going. On the one hand, President Trump says to the Iranians, it's only a matter of days until we unleash a military attack against you, and you have to come to an agreement immediately. But we've heard them say this also before, more than once. Secondly, and almost more importantly, there are voices within the White House and the US administration that are saying, we don't really want to attack the Iranians. We'd rather reach an agreement to be the ones to barter the agreement versus the ones attacking Iran full on. I want to add another question into this mix. If the US does enter this game and does attack Iran, what it actually does is it makes the timeline for the attack on Iran much shorter, because with the help of the US, and specifically their B-2 bombers and their ability to drop the Moab, it's the GBU-43, I believe, which is comically called the mother of all bombs, but it's actually, I think, the massive ordnance bomb something. I forget the full acronym. Anyway, it's a bunker-busting bomb that is able to really quickly end some of the harder-to-crack, pun intended, facilities within Iran. And that would help Israel bring an end to this war quicker, and it would help the Iranians reach an agreement in a faster fashion. So it's actually a counterintuitive equation here of how fast this conflict can end. I'm going to put a pause on that. Remember what I just said. How does this move forward? Well, it moves forward with an agreement. But the question is, how many more rounds, how many more nights of attacks by Iran on Israel and Israel on Iran will it take to reach that agreement? We're in the final phase of this attack. Israel has struck hundreds, if not thousands, of substantial strategic targets throughout Iran, and the Iranians have launched hundreds of ballistic missiles at Israel, hundreds of drones at Israel, causing some damage, but nowhere near what they were expecting to do. The end result here is clear. Iran lost. Iran is going to end this game without a nuclear program, whether it takes another week of Israeli bombings or they surrender tomorrow and reach an agreement. One way or another, they're walking out of this equation, out of this story, without nuclear capabilities and licking their wounds for many years to come. All we're looking at is a question of time. And the big deciding factor on how long it's going to take is whether or not President Trump decides to take military action or lets this game play out between Israel and Iran without direct military involvement of the US. Now back to Yair Pinto with an additional report on the Home Front Command, on-the-ground reporting of what's been taking place on the ground in Israel in light of the Iranian attacks.
So thank you very much, Mati Shoshani, for all the information and the clarity that you brought us. We will now continue with the reports, and once again, we invite you to keep spreading the truth and click that subscribe button or support us through the YouTube donation button and invest in the truth. Every dollar that you give will fuel us so we can continue to create more videos just like this one. The most important thing is that you pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We keep getting many questions about what remains in Iran's missile arsenal and what additional military power it still has. So I want to thank you for sending in these questions, and we will give you the details of what information that we still have here in this report. Iran, as far as we know, possesses several types of surface-to-surface missiles capable of reaching Israel. The ones that we already know very well are the ballistic missiles with warheads of 0.5 ton to 750 kilograms that are able to cover 1,500 kilometers within 12 minutes. Since Friday, Iran has launched about 370 ballistic missiles towards Israel, and estimates are that Iran had a little more than 1,000 missiles last week. That means Iran has used at least 1/3 of its ballistic missile stockpile that it had, not counting the ones that it lost to Israeli airstrikes and to sabotage. It's important to point out that Iran has also built extensive industrial capability to produce ballistic missiles And it was assessed that there was a plan to build 8,000 missiles within the next 2 years, and this was one of the reasons for starting this war. We couldn't just stand and watch them build this massive threat, which would give them the capacity to do what they're always threatening us that they will do, and that's wipe us out of this map. So with that having been said, against the surface-to-surface missiles that Iran had built and continues to build, Israel deploys the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 air defensive systems, the David Sling, and the American THAAD system. So far, the interception rate stands at about 90%. Iran claims it also possesses a hypersonic Fatah 1 missile, able to maneuver at 5 times the speed of sound to evade air defenses. In Israel, the assessment is that Iran does not actually have such missiles and that they certainly haven't used them in this war. And alongside this, Iran holds many thousands of UAVs that can fly up to 2,000 kilometers. They move at slow speeds, fly for about 8 hours from Iran to Israel at low altitude, and the difficulty is both in detecting them and in intercepting them. These weapons do not carry a very large warhead and do little damage when they do get through the defenses, but we still try to shoot them down before they can get close enough to pose a threat. And speaking of which, Israel is preparing for further salvos of both missiles and drones in the coming days, but the more the Air Force strikes on Iran intensify, the more Iran's ability to launch missiles will diminish. As I said, this is of both personal and professional interest to me, because in addition to being a journalist, I'm also a husband and a father, and I will be very happy when my children can go back to school and we can all stop running to bomb shelters 2 or 3 times every day. We're not afraid of the Iranian missiles, but we are tired and we grieve for those Israeli families who have lost loved ones and many more who have lost their homes and livelihoods. So guys, please join us in praying for these people to be confronted so that God will fill their hearts with love and with joy. Now, a moment before we move on to what is happening in the Gaza Strip, I want to once again invite you to keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, don't forget to press that subscribe button if you haven't already. The Southern Command continues to employ IDF forces in the Gaza Strip in defense and offense, though 4 regular and reserve divisions are operating in that area now. The forces act to eliminate terrorists and destroy underground terror infrastructure while continuing to reinforce border defenses. Division 162 continues to exert operational pressure in offensive activity in the Jabalia area with the 401st and the Givati Brigade combat teams. In the last 24 hours, the forces have closed circles on terrorists who opposed the threat and eliminated them from the air, destroyed terror infrastructure, weapons, underground routes, and operational apartments used by Hamas terrorists. In the Khan Yunis area, Division 36 forces continue to destroy terror infrastructure, and at the same time they continue efforts to locate underground routes which they will neutralize and destroy after the investigation. Division 252 forces continue the fighting in northern Gaza Strip, focusing on above and below ground terror infrastructures of Hamas and other terrorist Palestinian groups. The forces also deepened the operation into the Janina neighborhood and destroyed dozens of terror infrastructures. Division 80 forces continue to strengthen the deployment as forces have been redeployed on the Jordanian and the Egyptian borders. The added defense brigades create a significant forward projective wall, and in close cooperation with local defense squads, there is an enhanced response to prevent infiltration and thwart terror. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep reporting on every development in all the IDF fronts. Now, we go to TBN Israel director Samuel Smadja in our Jerusalem studio for a rare interview with Ramin Parsa, an Iranian who fled the Revolutionary Guards and will give us an inside look at what it looks like under the extreme Islamic regime of Iran. Over to you, Samuel.
Shalom from Jerusalem. I have a great honor to have a brother all the way from Iran here in the land. His name is Ramin. Ramin, we're in the midst of a war. We're in the midst of a war between our two nations, Israel and Iran. We're sitting here in the studio in Jerusalem. We would love to hear your perspective.
You know, the war is not against Iran, it's against the regime in Iran. Israel is bombing the enemies of the Iranian people. The regime in Iran came to power in 1979. It was through the Ayatollah. Actually, the Western countries, sadly, unfortunately, they supported the Ayatollah. Shah was not perfect, but he was very good. He was much better than these Ayatollahs. He was a friend of Israel. He was a friend of the West. And so these Ayatollahs, the communists, the Marxists, along with Islamists, they work together. There's we call them unholy alliance, and they topple the Shah. And Shah didn't want to kill people. He could stay and slaughter people and stay in power. But he left. He left, and these Ayatollahs came to power. The first thing they did, they took over American embassy. They took American diplomats hostage for 444 days. And so they began their aggression against, they attack Israeli embassy, they start executing people. Their aggression began at the very beginning of the revolution. And these Islamists who hate Jews, who hate Israel, who hate America, who hate the Western civilization, they got into power over one of the richest countries in the world. So Iran has an ocean of oil, gas, natural resources. And imagine Hamas-like people got over this nation and began to plunder and use the wealth of the Iranian people to enrich themselves. They began a war with Iraq. 2 million people, more than 2 million people were killed in the war.
Terrible.
So the whole thing started with bloodshed. Actually, the Ayatollah in Iran said, it was Khomeini, before Khamenei, he said that the bloodshed strengthened the root of our revolution.
See, terrible, sick.
Yes.
I'm sure you're watching very closely of what's going on in Iran.
Yes.
I don't know if you still have friends there, family or whatever. What's the feedback that you get from there?
Everybody is happy.
What do you mean happy?
Yes.
There's a war.
Yes, there's a happy, but Iranian people are the only people, when a foreign country is attacking them, they're happy. They're happy because for 47 years they've tried to topple this regime, and this regime oppressed them. And now there's a country that is hitting the oppressor. So of course Iranian people are rejoicing because somebody is coming to their rescue.
So there are people, there are countries and people around the world, around the Western world, that say Israel should stop. What do you think?
It's very, very sad. I see this in the Western countries. Some people, I call them the neocons and the woke right, even on the right, the woke left and the woke right, that are demonizing Israel. They think Israel is aggressive toward the neighbors, but they have not lived here.
Are you sure you're Iranian?
Well, because I lived in Iran, I lived in America, I lived in Israel. I've seen all sides. So I can make a good judgment. These people in the West have never been outside of their city or in Europe. They have no idea what it means to live under an oppressive regime like Iran. You know, in Iran, you cannot own a pet. Women get beaten, tortured, killed for having a little bit of their hair visible. And so imagine living under that, and then they execute people. Christians have been killed in Iran. Nobody in Iran likes this regime. So when a country like Israel is attacking the regime, of course, people are happy.
I heard that Iran dismantled the internet.
They did. They blocked internet for a while, but sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. They can't do it completely because of work, business, and they can't completely do it. And I heard Elon Musk gave internet to the Starlink internet, yes, to the Iranian people. So the Iranian people are shouting death to Ayatollah every night over the rooftops. Imagine, Israel is attacking Iran, people are shouting death to Ayatollah.
Do you believe a revolution is possible?
Very much, very
Really?
much, yes.
There is somebody to take the place. I mean, it's one thing to do a revolution.
Yes.
It's one thing to take somebody off.
Yes.
But do you believe that there is somebody who's a leader that can take over?
Yes, and so the son of the Shah, he has a lot of favor with people because what they did to his father. They kicked his father out, and his father really built Iran. His father and grandfather, they built Iran from scratch.
So if there will be a revolution, you don't believe it's going to be a total chaos?
No,
you believe that somebody will come and bring order and...
Yes, because Iranian people are pro-West. They are pro-Israel. They said, why are we fighting with Israel? Why are we fighting with, why we are enemy of everyone? Iranian people are the people of culture, music, art, beautiful rugs, poetry. They're not these people with AK-47, shouting, we're going to do jihad and kill Israel. The regime does. But the regular people, day-to-day people, They want to have a normal life. They want to be friends with America. They want science. They want technology. They want computer. These people are Western-leaning people. So imagine they don't want an oppressive regime, another oppressive regime. So, and the son of the Shah, because Iranians who shout death to Shah, now they're saying death to us for saying death to Shah. They're so sorry and remorseful for what they did to the Shah. And they want now his son, they want him to be back.
Today you're a believer, you're born again believer. When you see the situation, your heart is torn?
Yes, it's a bittersweet situation. You know, bitter that war always destroys things and people die, innocent people. Even the people in Iran tell me we're more sad that people in Israel get killed.
Wow.
They don't even care about themselves. They said we care for Israelis. This is the people of Iran. But the thing is that, in a good sense, is that the sweet side that when you go through freedom, we want to be freed. There's a price to be paid. It's like a surgery. You have to go through, razors and knives, and you go through pain. But then you get healed from the disease. The sweet side is freedom, and the bitter side is that the pain. But people are willing to pay that price. The regime already was killing them.
Interesting.
The regime in Iran already was executing people. You know, in just past year, 12 months, the regime in Iran has executed 1,500 people. And these are innocent people, like people who oppose the regime or people who are political activists against the regime. They get arrested, they put a label on them, a spy for Israel or a threat to national security, boom, they hang them on the crane. So the regime is already killing them. So people said, so let Israel come, America come, and take these terrorists out, take these ayatollahs, and we'll be free.
I know we go to the same Messianic congregation here in Jerusalem, and I know that from the 7th of October, you didn't just sit at home. You got up and you went and you looked for ways how to help Israelis during the war. And you were very, very active, and you help soldiers, family who lost their house. You're very, very active. What drove you to do that?
You know, for years, they were told us to say death to Israel, death to America, and they told us to hate Jews. Now, when it came to Israel and October 7 massacre, I call it the Holocaust, happened, I felt that I can do my own part. Even I told my wife that I'm willing to go to the army if they take me. But I began to cook and take food for the bases. I began to take supplies to the south of Israel.
What did the Israelis say when they met an Iranian ex-Muslim bringing them food and being so nice and showing them your love?
They were amazed. They were amazed. And that was the purpose, because I want them to see in the middle of a war, when hatred is coming from all sides against Israel, that there's a hope. And I told them that I was told to hate you, but now I came here to love you and give him food. And I told them a Jewish rabbi changed my life. They said, oh, what is his name? I said, Yeshua. And they were so amazed and touched because they saw that there's a hope.
You know the leadership in Iran. You know the Ayatollahs, you know this mindset, you understand the mindsets. Do you see any way that they will say, okay, we surrender?
No. They might surrender under force, but their heart will not be changed.
So they're not going to surrender. They're not going to say, okay, Israel, you attacked us a lot. Okay, we'll...
They might do it out of fear, which actually right now I heard the news that they're telling Cyprus and Qatar and different countries to intervene, to tell the Israelis that...
To stop.
Stop, yeah. But I don't think Israel should.
Do you think an agreement, I mean, the Western world is talking about an agreement, a nuclear agreement. You know them, you grew up there. Do you think they will hold to the agreement?
Absolutely not.
You sure?
Yes.
So you think this whole thing, this whole idea of sitting and negotiating on an agreement won't hold water?
It's a waste of time.
You're kidding me.
And I tell you why. So this regime, if there's an agreement and the regime, let's say because of the pressure, war and the hammer, they say, okay, if they make a deal, even to dismantle all the neutral places, all the centrifuges, and they say we don't want to enrich uranium, even if they agree to that, what does the West have to do? Lift all the sanctions. Iran has access to a SWIFT. They can have, sell oil with a high price, and they will become rich again. And what do you think they're going to do with the money? Again, rebuild the proxies, and they're going to oppress the people.
Yeah, but the people, I want to challenge you. I mean, the people that talk about an agreement will tell you, listen, Israel and America can always attack. We have nothing to lose. Let's give them a chance. And let's see, if it doesn't hold water, we'll attack again.
No, it's been 47 years that they have been given the chance.
So you don't believe them?
Absolutely not.
You don't believe any word that comes out of them?
Not even one word. This regime doesn't even keep their words to the people of Iran. How much more to the Americans and to the infidels?
Exactly. The infidels.
So imagine that this regime has been lying after lying, and they have been deceiving. For example, how did the revolution happen in 1979? They promised people free everything. Free transportation, free electricity, free water. They're going to distribute the sale of oil, the money, equally between everyone.
They didn't give them anything.
Not only did they give them anything, they took even away from them. Now in Iran, every day, before even the war, there was 4 or 5 hours of blackout every day. I talked to my family, all of them. They said there's blackouts. Bakeries, they have dough to make bread. There's no electricity, and they have to throw away the dough. And hospitals here, there. So imagine, not only electricity become free, now, even with paying, they don't have electricity.
If you were an advisor to the government of Israel, what do you think the point will be that this regime will fall?
Keep going as you are. Keep doing it, because this regime is much weaker. I've been saying this a long time, that the Iranian regime is a paper tiger.
Really?
They have this,
Yeah, we say it today.
Yes, they're a paper tiger. They've been barking, but they really have no power. I've been saying this before the war. I've been telling even Israelis that this regime has nothing, and it's just barking, threatening. And a lot of people thought, this regime will retaliate.
But they don't have anything to lose. I mean, they have nothing to lose and everything to lose.
Well,
if they surrender, they have everything to lose. They'll be killed, like in Libya, what they did to Gaddafi.
Yes.
The people will kill them.
Yes.
So in a way, they have no reason to stop.
Well, see, the Libya is different than Iran. Why? Because most population of the Arab world, like if you look at Iraq, Libya, if you look at Yemen, these are even the civilians are paramilitary group. They have guns and they go on the streets and they rebel. Iranian people are not like that. Iranian people are
maybe that's why they cannot do a revolution.
Exactly. They're educated people. They want freedom. They're not like harsh people going out trying to kill people. And that's why, if Israel continues like this and taking out the leaders, what exactly they did to Hezbollah, and taking out the leaders, the regime will fall. There's rumors that some of them are fleeing to Russia. The head of the office of the Ayatollah is negotiating with Russia that in case of emergency they would flee there, like Assad. Who could have imagined Assad would just flee like this? So that's why, if Israel continues the pressure like this, taking out the leaders, taking out the...
But the Israeli will tell you that wasn't our purpose. Our purpose was to stop the nuclear
But they will not
power.
stop. Because let's say we hit them today, we destroy some parts, and then we don't, we stop. They rebuild again, and then you have the same problem over again. So it's time to finish it and finish it. And Israel has paid a big price in the last 2 years. Imagine last 2 years with the Hamas, with Hezbollah, with the Houthis, and all the sirens and bombs and blood that Israelis lost, soldiers. So if Israel stops now, all of it in vain.
Interesting. We're sitting here at the TBN studio, overlooking this beautiful city of Jerusalem. We're in the midst of a war. It doesn't look like that. The view is beautiful. But in this time, you're going in and out the bomb shelter. What gives you hope?
It gives me hope that Iran can be free, and that our Lord...
Interesting.
Yes.
That Iran can be free.
There's a promise in Jeremiah 49 about Iran, that Jeremiah prophesied this thousands of years ago. He said that God said that I will judge the leaders of Elam. Elam is one of the names for Iran. I will judge their leaders. I will destroy their foremost power, and I will establish my throne there, and I will bring back the captives of Elam, and will bring prosperity to Elam.
Wow, beautiful. Let's talk about the church in Iran.
Yes.
I heard many stories and many numbers in the air about what people are doing. What do you think? Tell us about the church in Iran.
The church in Iran, based on not even my estimation or what I say, I think it was Open Doors or World Outreach. They said that Iran is the fastest growing church in the world.
Wow.
There's China, Iran, Brazil, but Iran is the fastest growing.
Kidding me.
Yeah, there are millions of people. They said in the last 20 years, about 8 million people have become believers.
Wow.
And because it's underground, nobody can confirm yes or no, but based on my estimation and the people I've met, and I was in ministry with Iranians for years, and I had a church in California, and We baptized hundreds of people, ex-Muslims, came to our church, became believers. And so it's happening. It's happening. Iranians are leaving Islam. There's a vacuum there because not only they rejected the Ayatollahs, they rejected Islam. And they are embracing the gospel. And it's a great opportunity. If regime falls, imagine all these believers outside can go into Iran. Underground church will come up.
Wow.
It will be a revival.
A new day. Ramin Parsa, what a great joy having you with us and a great joy to consider you as one of my friends. Thank you for being a voice in these dark times that we all are going through. And to you, our friends, keep praying for the people of Iran. The war is not against the Iranian people. Keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Keep praying for the salvation of both nations because we need hope. They need hope. And let's keep praying that Iran will be free again and they won't need to go through what they're going through. Yair, back to you.
So thank you, TBN Israel Director Samuel Smadja, for that moving interview. I think we can all learn something from listening to the voices of ordinary Iranian people, and I'm glad that TBN Israel has the opportunity to bring some of those voices to you. Now, it is my sad duty to pay my final respects to a hero who fell defending the state of Israel. On Tuesday morning, the IDF cleared for publication the name of the fallen IDF soldier after his family was notified. Staff Sergeant Neve Leshem, 20, from Nokdim, a soldier in the 12th Battalion of the Golani Brigade, fell in the battle in the southern part of the Gaza Strip on Monday. In the same incident, 4 of his comrades were seriously wounded and required evacuation to hospitals in central Israel for further treatment. Also, cleared for publication on Tuesday is the news of Captain Tal Movshovitz, 28 years of age, from Reut, Deputy Company Commander in the Engineering Battalion 7086 Golani Brigade, who fell in a battle in the southern Gaza Strip in recent days. Captain Moshkovitz was hit by a booby-trapped explosive in a building that he was clearing in the Abshan neighborhood of Khan Yunis on Monday afternoon. So we will keep praying for the safety of the IDF soldiers wherever they are, in the air, at sea, and on land. And we also pray for the recovery of the wounded. So guys, continue praying for the safety of our hostages in the Gaza Strip. Pray for the peace of Israel. Most importantly, don't forget to pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.